Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for July 2nd, 2019. For those that have not had the pleasure of attending one of our gatherings before, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. First of all, if you would silence your cell phones, we'd greatly appreciate that to help things go in an orderly fashion. And the way things work is once we're done with my little notes, we'll do a roll call, we'll approve the minutes from last time, and then we'll go over business items one by one. First of all, city staff will present on an item. Then it's opened up to just to the Plan Commission for technical questions. Once we're done with technical questions, it goes out to the audience. If you have anything to say or a question, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address so we have it for the minutes, and then say your piece. Please try to stay on topic if you can. After everybody who has desired to speak has done so, we close public comment or public testimony and bring it back to the commission for discussion and a vote. With that, let us call the roll.
Kathleen Propp.
Here.
Lindsay Erickson.
Here.
Michael Ford.
Here.
John Hintz.
Present.
John Kiefer.
Here.
Lori Palmieri. Thomas Perry.
Here.
Justin Mitchell.
Here.
Eric Guroth.
Here.
Thomas Foytak.
Here. Moving on to the approval of the minutes from June 18th. Do we have any additions, corrections, deletions, et cetera, for those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion clearly passes. Do you want to start with the announcement about the workshop, sir?
Yes, so we will not tonight be having the workshop for potential plan development for Park Avenue Bar. The city was contacted by the owner who was to withdraw that workshop item at this time.
All right, item number 1 is election of officers. I have a little note that on my agenda specifically for me. It says read title and then staff will take over. All right, staff take over.
Okay. So we have to select the chairman for the commission. I will call for nomination 3 times. Then we will have a motion to close the nomination and vote. So at this time, I call for nominations for the chair.
I nominate Tom Votek.
Any other?
You need seconds on the nominations?
Do not. I will call a second time. Any other nominations for chair? And a third time. Any other nominations for chair? At this time, we then do need a motion to close nominations.
I move to close nominations.
That we need a second for.
I'll second.
And then call the roll.
Erickson.
One person. So.
Yeah, Votek. Or I, yeah.
All right. Does Tom vote then?
No.
No. Ford.
Aye.
Hintz.
Aye.
Kiefer.
Aye.
Perry.
Aye.
Propp.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Groth.
Aye.
8-0.
So, Mr. Vortek, congratulations
Sure, thank
on
you.
being chair of Plan Commission.
Might I
That's-
suggest next time we do a private ballot for that?
So I will turn it over. I will
You're
just-
lucky it wasn't a
Just,
private
just
ballot.
throwing it out there.
It'd be the same results.
Yeah, well, maybe
I
not.
will then turn it over to you for nomination for the vice chair.
Okay, we're taking nominations for vice chair.
I move Kathleen Propp for vice chair.
Call a second time.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
Third time.
Any other nominations, third time? Okay,
Motion to close nominations.
Motion to close nominations.
second.
You can probably just do it as a voice vote. We only have one person.
Okay, all in favor, all opposed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, congratulations.
Congratulations. All right.
Moving on to regular business now.
Ready to go.
Item number 2, right-of-way vacation of Raft Lane east of North Keller Street. Do we have any site visits of that
Yes.
area? Kathy did visit. We accept the staff report as part of the record, and turning it over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're more than welcome.
So Jeff in our office and I worked on this one. And this item is a vacation of Rath Lane. You can kind of see the subject site here in blue. So we're looking at this approximately 60-foot wide right-of-way and 216-foot long this direction, west to east. So really the portion of Rath Lane that runs west to east, or east to west, I should say, from North Keller on to the east there. This is about 17,400 square feet of right-of-way, and it was originally acquired by the Wisconsin DOT back in 2008 in anticipation of the roundabout project, the I-41 roundabout projects. So when these roundabouts were put in, they wanted to acquire this right-of-way because they were going to be closing off previous driveway access to these properties here due to their proximity to the roundabout. It wouldn't have been feasible to keep driveway access off of these properties right onto Oshkosh Avenue. So this right-of-way here was acquired by the state DOT to allow driveway access off the back to these properties. So what we're looking to do is vacate this right-of-way. It's, like I said, a 60-foot wide right-of-way, about a 75-foot or so in diameter cul-de-sac, and running north of these 3 lots on the 1800 block of Oshkosh Avenue. Prime Space LLC owns the lots to the south of the right-of-way, I believe all of these. And the property to the north right now is owned by the city, so up here. It's an atypical vacation in the sense that the vacation is not split down the middle, as you would see in a lot of other right-of-way vacations. What's going to happen is this is going to revert back. This right-of-way is going to revert back to these properties that had it beforehand. So let's see here if we got a better, so you can see here actually, is this on the eastern part of the cul-de-sac is going to go to the property here on the south. I believe that will be 1820 Oshkosh Avenue, getting that part of it back. This here, this big chunk here will go back to the city lot up to the north. And then this very small triangular portion here, you can barely see it, will go back to this sliver of property or parcel here along North Keller Street. Ultimately, too, there was actually there was official mapping completed by the city to widen North Keller Street between Oshkosh Avenue and Rath Lane. So if we go back and we look at this orange here, this was already done, but official mapping here, so you'll see this parcel here, this is gonna be 10 feet here, 10 feet here, and it'll be 80 feet of right-of-way there, consistent with Keller to the north, I believe. And eventually this would become one big lot and be redeveloped. The city Public Works Department has stated that the right-of-way has served its purpose and is no longer needed. The city will have the right to access utility facilities and maintain those in accordance with state statutes. So that is not going to be an issue. We talked to our attorneys. I don't think that we need to worry about easements. We did have discussions with the legal office here. So staff supports this right-of-way vacation as proposed. Traffic in the area will not be impacted as the subject right-of-way already sees very little vehicle traffic. This will allow the city also to not have to worry about snow plowing, maintaining that street, etc. So like I said, we recommend approval of this vacation.
All right, thank you. Any technical questions from the commission about this item? Go ahead, John.
So when they develop the properties to the south, how are they going to access Keller to the up to the north across the city property, or?
It's anticipated that when this area develops in the future, they would potentially look at a curb cut approximately where that road right-of-way used to be to somewhat line up with Rath Lane to the west. Final determination of where a driveway would be taken off North Keller will still need to be determined.
Okay.
And the state relinquished its rights to restricting driveway access, I believe. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. So driveway access off North Keller is feasible at this point.
Other technical questions? All right, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Once. Okay, no one wants to talk about this, and public comment is closed. I don't think we need any closing statements from the applicants here. All right, then make a motion.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second. Okay, discussion. Kathy.
Yes, this is an interesting case, and I'm glad I went out to look at it. First of all, the street's already been, North Keller's been paved, and this stub is closed off by a curb and a sidewalk. So, you know, it's a non-street, you know, it's just concrete sitting there. And I don't object, obviously, because of that, I don't object to vacating Rath Lane. It doesn't make any sense. I was a little concerned to see a narrow sidewalk already built along both sides of Keller. Prior to the new park plan, talking about, is there going to be a trail connection along one of those sides? So you've already built concrete sidewalk, and maybe you'd have to tear it up or change it or something, but, I don't object to the right-of-way vacation, and that's our point today. But I do think that the city should carefully consider whether to hold on to its segment, its remaining segment, because it could be a little mini parking lot, I think, for the park. And maybe that's irrational, maybe there's not room, but I guess I'd like the minutes to show that that's the potential use of the city, the remainder of the city-owned property when we do vacate would be a mini parking lot to go with a park.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, let's call the roll.
Perry?
Aye.
Mitchell?
Aye.
Gross?
Aye.
Prop? Erickson? Ford?
Aye.
Ince?
Aye.
Kiefer?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Moving on to item number 3, extraterritorial two-lot land division and certified survey map at 5094 State Road 91 in the town of Omro. Any site inspections out there today or recently? Okay, we accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Up on the screen, I have a air photo of the subject site located at 5094 State Road 91 in the town of Omro. This is a request for a two-lot land division from one existing 39.926 acre parcel. The proposed land division will split off a lot on the southeast corner of the property, sized at just over 5 acres. The subject site is located approximately 1/4 mile west of the James Road in the Oshkosh city limits. You can see on the air photo right over here. This is the city's James Road detention basin, so you can see the proximity of the subject site. Currently, the site is zoned A2, which is a county general agricultural district, and obviously by the photo, the site is being used agriculturally. The site also does have farmstead and various agricultural-related outbuildings towards the back of the house's location. The city's comprehensive land use plan recommends approximately the front 1/3 of this area with a recommendation of industrial uses and residential uses in the rear 2/3 of this general area. The purpose of the land division is to separate the existing home and outbuildings from the agriculturally used land. This is a very common type land division request that we see. One of the purposes is it gives the property owner greater flexibility on future changes or sale of the ag land, separated from the residents and other agricultural related buildings. Lot 1 is proposed to be divided as a 225-foot wide by 968.5-foot lot, just a tad over 5 acres in size. This does exceed the town of Omro's width-to-depth ratio, which the depth shall not exceed 2.5 times the width. As you can see, it's a very long and narrow lot. On June 20th, the town of Omro did grant a subdivision variance for the owner to exceed the width-to-depth ratio for the creation of this lot. And that's in keeping with the town's comprehensive plan. The applicant does not state future uses of either lot. We're assuming that the main portion, or the 35 acre portion, will continue to be used agriculturally, as well as the use of the home and outbuildings will not change. The Department of Public Works reviewed the request and did not have any additional concerns. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the 2-lot extraterritorial land division as proposed.
All right, thank you, sir. Technical questions? Go ahead, Justin.
Got a quick question. I saw that the Winnebago County, I'm not sure if it's the Land and Water Conservation Department, but they have a farmland preservation program in place. Is there at any time when somebody approaches the city, or even, I know, maybe you know about the township, that they're provided information on that particular program? I mean, it almost looks like there's already a home there and that they're not necessarily losing a lot of farmland, but just in general, do you know if that's something that gets shared with somebody?
The city does not. These land divisions do also have to go through the county, as what they are the actual approving authority. We have just the extraterritorial oversight.
Sure. And getting to that extraterritorial oversight, you mentioned that there's not really anything that we can do. I'm just curious, what would happen if the Plan Commission and the City Council both voted no on this?
Potentially, they could still get it approved through court, through the county.
So there's authority that we are able to stop something, but it would just need to be overturned in court. So then it seems like we could do something. You're
could.
saying that we can't do anything.
We can. The courts and the precedence that has been set is it would be granted and overturned in court. So yes, we could throw a hurdle into it, but the precedent through the state law is that ultimately they would approve it through the court.
Sure.
Other technical questions?
And I will say this one's a little unique because we do look at our comp plan when we make recommendations on these things. We have a mix industrial, residential land use. This area, when we updated our comp plan, we looked to the town because we know, yes, it's within our 3-mile area, but it's not a likely expansion area within the time frame of our comp plan that the city would look to expand. So we felt that in this case, the comp plan, although it is a little different from an agricultural subdivision as they're doing today, it's still consistent with what the town has planned for that area.
Yeah, I noted that it's right across the street from Fox River Valley Ethanol, which might not be a great spot for residential.
Yeah, that's why the county envisioned more of the industrial use on the southern portion of it to kind of buffer those uses.
Right.
Other technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item?
Question?
Oh, come on up and state your name and address, sir, to the microphone so we can hear you on TV.
I'm Robert Potratz. I'm the owner of that parcel that we're subdividing. The question is, I couldn't hear what you were asking.
Oh, do you have any comments or questions about?
No, just, the renter that's been in the house for, I think, 9 years, they're a young couple, wanted to buy rather than rent. My wife and I are kind of semi-retired, so we thought, well, okay, fine. And so we thought we'd go through the steps here
All right.
to subdivide.
Great. All right, thank you very much, sir. Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Okay, seeing none. Need a motion?
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second?
And Kathy got there first. Discussion?
Raise.
Show up on the box score, Jeff.
Yeah. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, call the roll.
Harry.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Groth.
Aye.
Crop.
Aye.
Erickson. Ford.
Aye.
Hintz.
Aye.
Kiefer.
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Moving on to item number 4, a 2-lot land division and certified survey map at the southwest corner of Riff Road and Edgewood Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, hold on. Oh,
I'm sorry.
any site inspections of that little piece of property? All right, Tom was out there. And we accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have another 2-lot land division here, this one being in the city, located at the southwest corner of Riff Road and Edgewood Road. This is an area in the northwest part of the city. The subject site consists of one parcel, approximately 0.84 acres in size, and is located approximately a half mile west of US Highway 45. The site is platted as an outlot, Outlot 5 of the plat of Edgewood Village, which is a residential development to the west, and is currently undeveloped except for up in this northeast corner. There is a subdivision sign for Edgewood Village and complementary landscaping. The surrounding area is mostly agricultural in nature to the north and east, and low residential uses to the south and west. The site is currently zoned SR5 with a planned development overlay, as well as most of the surrounding area, and comprehensive plan recommends light density residential. Now, the purpose of the land division is to remove the current outlot status. Per state statute, outlots cannot be used as a building site. Back in 2005, when this subdivision was going through preliminary plat review, there was very many versions of what was going to occur with this chunk of land, ranging from slicing into 6 lots, down to 4, down to 3. And with the final plat approval, it was converted to an outlot, which was briefly mentioned to serve as green space and placement of subdivision sign at the northwest corner of the property, or northeast corner. Lot 1 is proposed to be divided as a 123-foot wide by 155-foot deep lot, approximately 19,000 square feet in size, which meets the SR5 base standards. The final plat did have a note on it restricting access onto Riff Road for vehicles. So as a condition, staff is recommending to place a restriction on the CSM just to reiterate the access restriction directly to Riff Road. Proposed lot 2, just to the south there, is 145 feet wide by 123 feet deep and approximately 18,000 square feet in area. Again, meeting SR5 minimum standards. I think let's go to the next one here. Whoop. I just want to show you the CSM. On the southwest portion of the property, there is the city does have a stormwater drainage easement, which is the easterly line. Oh no, I'm sorry, the westerly line. That's the edge of the city's stormwater drainage easement. And then on the easterly side, that is a 75-foot shoreline zoning setback. That's a buffer from an existing stream over to the west here. Staff doesn't have any concerns with the locations of the existing restrictions because they are well within the rear 25-foot setback required, so it won't affect the buildability of the lot. I'll go back to this here. The proposed division is partially recreating what was approved on the preliminary plat by recreating 2 lots versus 3. The lots are larger than most of the development to the west, with the part of the core subdivision, but it is in line with the subdivision to the west, which is North Shore Preserve subdivision, where these lots tend to be larger generally in size versus the lots that were platted on the east side. So staff does not have concerns with the larger than usual size. That and the fact that these 2 lots are kind of not part of the core development to the west. So the proposed land division won't seem out of place or out of scale with the rest of the development. Staff had discussion with the loss of the green space, which was noted during the first final plat approval for Edgewood Estates. According to, the preliminary plat, which I'm going to go to right here, this was the preliminary plat that was approved back in 2005. This subdivision was, at the time, a conservation-style subdivision using coving design. Now, plats using coving techniques generally have narrower streets. The streets over here, which have been constructed already, the right-of-way is only 50 feet wide with narrower paved areas. The plots generally have non-uniform sizes and orientations, and these types of plats generally provide larger amounts of green space, which you can tell looking at the final plat of the whole development. Everything in green is proposed green space for the development, which includes recreational areas like this, and then many interconnected trail system. I know there's a trail that goes around this detention pond over there. So the loss of that green space is not a major concern to staff. And then also looking, during the preliminary plat approval, this wasn't even designated as green space. It was a later reiteration of the subdivision showing it divided as 3 lots. So it's more in keeping with what the original preliminary plat approved. So as development continues, if it follows what was approved with the preliminary plat, there's going to be ample amounts of green space provided to the development. Now, if the owner chooses to redivide or change the design of the subdivision, with it being a planned development, they'll have to come back to this board and get common council approval for any type of deviation from the original plat or the preliminary plat. And at that time, staff will evaluate if an ample green space is being provided for the development. One thing to note about this division, with the subject site currently as an outlot status, the Edgewood Homeowners Association may have interests on the property. Right now, their main interest is maintenance, which the association is required to mow it twice a year, and maintenance of the subdivision sign. Now, the city does not have any review authority or authority to regulate conditions specified in homeowner association agreements. So it's up to the property owner to ensure that any agreements are amended to reflect the proposed changes of developing the lots with single-family uses. I did contact the surveyor, he's aware, and the property owner should be aware of this just little notation as well. But again, the city doesn't have any review or authority to regulate conditions specified in homeowner associations. The Department of Public Works reviewed the land division and reported that city water is readily available. Let's use this map along Edgewood Drive, so it does have immediate water access. There is no sanitary sewer at this time, but later this summer, sanitary sewer will be constructed coming south from Riff Road down south to serve these lots over here. One other note, DPW noted that there is pending special assessments on the property for the construction of the sanitary sewer along Edgewood. With that, staff is recommending approval of the 2-lot land division with one condition where I mentioned that we just want to see the access restriction onto Riff Road on Lot 1 for prohibiting a driveway entrance on Riff Road.
All right, thank you, sir. Technical questions? Yes, Thomas.
So on lot 1, if there is a residence built on lot 1, then that residential owner would be responsible for maintaining the sign?
That's up to them to decide.
That would be up to them to, if they choose to amend their covenants and restrictions. That is something that they would have to work out. The city would not be part of that.
But if the sign is on lot 1's property,
The covenants right now govern who is responsible for taking care of that sign.
okay. And then an additional question, to the west of lot 1 is unbuildable space because of the drainage easement, is that correct?
Correct.
So the west of lot 2, same thing because of the easement and the creek?
Correct.
And then to the south of lot 2 would also be unbuildable because of the easement as well, correct?
Yeah, it starts to get relatively narrow where those easements are heading southeast. You lose potential for a buildable width. You can kind of see on the preliminary.
This second one here.
Yeah, and even the preliminary plat shows kind of there's sufficient buildable width to the north, and as you move south, you no longer have that case.
I was asked to evaluate that, and there is the potential of one lot where you have enough buildable width for a house, so potentially one more lot.
Potentially, but pretty much after this, the green space will remain.
Will remain, the city has a permanent easement over that area for drainage purposes.
And then the access has to be from Edgewood.
Correct. That was stipulated on the original final plat.
Any other technical questions? Seeing none, anybody here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir. Tell us your name and address and what you want us to know.
Chad Durkee, 1524 South Oakwood Road. Just giving a little history on the lots. My grandfathers own these lots. So just to touch on the question about the maintenance of the sign, we as the family have mowed the yard, taken care of the sign. The actual association hasn't done the twice a year, so I really don't think there's any conflict of interest there with the sign. We went with larger lots because the family intends to build on them, not sell the 0.2 acres and create the condos that are already out there. And for the city's sake, just having actual buildings on the property tax assessment's going to go up, and it will be an income stream for years to come. So,
All right,
my
thank you.
comments.
Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Okay, public comment is closed. Back to the commission. Need a motion.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendation is stated in the staff report.
Second. Okay, discussion. Hands are being raised, so we will call the roll.
Perry?
Aye.
Mitchell?
Aye.
Gross?
Aye.
Crop?
Aye.
Erickson? Aye. Ford?
Aye.
Ince?
Aye.
Kiefer?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Okay. Moving on to item number 5, this is a public hearing for a zone change from institutional district to institutional district with a plan development overlay, a general development plan, and specific implementation plan for fencing at 215 Church Avenue, otherwise known as the Police Department. And do we have any site inspections today? I sort of did
Didn't
when I drove
everybody
in.
kind of
Yeah,
look over?
we're-
I tried to look
Very
away.
casual.
Tried to look away, but I couldn't do that and be safe. And, so, okay, everybody's taking a peek at it? Okay, we accept the staff report as part of the record. Tell us what you know.
Thank you. So this is a zone change request to include a plan development overlay and also a request for a general development plan and specific implementation plan to secure a parking area. So the subject area is where we are right now, the home to Oshkosh City Hall and the Police Department. There's one parcel, about 5.62 acres in size. It is zoned institutional. The surrounding area is a mixture of institutional, commercial, and residential uses. And the 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan recommends center city use for the site. So here's an aerial view of the site. The Oshkosh Police Department is proposing to put fencing around the parking area where they keep their police vehicles. As proposed, the fencing will be 6 feet tall. It'll be a decorative metal fencing. It'll extend into the front yard along Algoma and along Jackson Street, along that parking area. A little closer view. So the zoning ordinance only allows fencing in the front yard to go up to a maximum height of 4 feet. And again, as proposed there, the fencing will be 6 feet tall. And again, decorative metal fencing. So that's why they are requesting the plan development overlay to give them the opportunity to apply for a base standard modification to allow that increase in height. So staff does support the zone change request to include the plan development, as it will provide an opportunity to accommodate additional needs for the site, as well as the unique layout of the property. And here's the site plan for the fencing. Again, shows that it will be around the existing parking area that extends into the front yard. Another site plan. It will include gates in this area. And staff is supportive of the base standard modification for 6 foot tall fencing in the front yard, as it is necessary to create a secure parking area to protect those police vehicles, and that parking area extends into the front yard along Jackson Street and Algoma Boulevard. And as far as the fencing material, it will be a Montage 2 fencing with gates, so it's decorative in style, should have a good appearance, and also it should provide sufficient visibility for the site. And staff recommends approval of the rezone, GDP and SIP, with the findings in your staff report and the condition of a base standard modification to allow 6 foot tall fencing within a front yard, where code allows a maximum fence height of 4 feet.
All right, thank you, sir. Technical question. John?
Yeah, I was wondering if we were doing this for a private entity, say a business, for allowing them a 6 foot for security reasons, and that was their access to the street, which will hinder seeing traffic coming and going. would we not put some kind of a restriction on it to come back and revisit it in case there are more accidents?
There is no access out. I think you're talking a
Or
little bit about the
are they only allowing
intersection.
access out in the parking lot?
Yeah, this is the only access out of the site.
Okay.
A little history on this. So this project started,
I thought I saw access on the street.
oh, there is is this access,
Yeah.
Mr. Gaither? Excuse me. And yes, I agree with you. So a little history on this site, and Justin can correct me if I've got my dates wrong. This project started like 2013, 2015, prior to the 2017 code update. The city bid out the project a number of times and did not get a bid that was in line with what the project needed. During the latest round of bidding, they finally did get a contractor that was willing to undertake the project for a cost that was effective. As then we moved forward with this project, we looked at how it compared to the code update, which no longer permitted this fence in that location, which is why we decided to go through this process of looking at the zone change with the base standard modification. Do I have my dates roughly?
Generally, yeah. So when it was originally bid out was when we did the underground detention basin right here in front of City Hall. So it was originally bid out with that. Funding was not available at the time. Worked through several different processes. Finally put money back in the CIP back in 2017, and we're finally just getting around to being able to have a contractor to be able to do the work.
Other technical questions? Yes, Tom.
What is the need for the security?
So the police department has identified that they have had some vandalism issues with some of the vehicles out there, and they're looking to secure that to kind of reduce the cost of having to fix that vandalism that's been taking place.
They've found they've had they've had several individuals be jumping on top of the police cars, as well as leaving tacks or nails behind or underneath tires. This also will secure the
rear entrance.
employee entrance. They've had several occasions where persons has come in to turn themselves in, who has committed serious crimes, and that entrance is really not the place for them doing that. So this will secure that entrance to require them to go through the proper channels to get into the building.
The parking lot has just been completed, or, in recent years. Why wasn't this fencing part of that initial whole plan?
A big portion of it was the bidding it out to get a price that was of what the city could spend on it.
It was originally included in the parking lot plans back in 2013 and 2015 when it was constructed, but when it was originally in those plans, there was no money in the budget to have it done, so it was not constructed.
Other technical questions? Okay, thank you very much, Justin.
I will say this has been on the police department's radar for a number of years with wanting to get this fence installed.
Anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Once, twice? Okay, 3 times. None. Back to the commission. We need a motion.
No.
Oh, motion?
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Justin.
Yeah, so just walking along Jackson Street, they've eliminated the terrace there, and so there's this kind of small area between this proposed large fence and kind of fast traffic that often includes trucks and whatnot. I do think it's unfortunate that, in planning this, that maybe they hadn't have created more green space between the road and the driveway for this fence, so that it's not such an enclosed area. I mean, traffic goes really fast there, and when you no longer have that comfort of being able to move off the sidewalk when a car is driving fast or somebody's not really driving in control, I feel like this is the second meeting in a row where there was a parking lot done and something maybe wasn't included or thought through right away that should have been, either in that case the sign and in this case the fencing.
The fence today could go there at 4 feet in height without necessarily needing this process. The discussion today is really, is it appropriate to allow them to change that currently code permitted fence from 4 feet to 6 feet?
Right. There's no setback requirements from the lot line for a 4-foot fence in the front of somebody's property?
There is not. Any individual could put a fence right up to their front property line, whether that being a sidewalk in front of their home or a business.
Other thoughts? Okay, seeing none, call the roll, please.
Harry,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Groth,
Aye.
Crop,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Hinks,
Aye.
Kiefer,
Aye.
Boytai.
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
On to item number 6. My cheat sheet's in the right place here. Public hearing, okay. Proposed creation of a tax increment financing district number 37, Aviation Plaza redevelopment project, designation of boundaries and approval of project plan. Site inspections, I know I went out there. We have a few folks that did that. All right, we accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you. Anything?
It'll be a bit of a group effort here today. So I'll start. So this is the project plan for proposed creation of tax increment district 37 Aviation Plaza redevelopment. This proposed district includes 5 parcels, approximately 27 acres in size, and is being designated as in need of rehabilitation or conservation. Plan Commission will be relatively familiar with the site, as in recent year we have approved 2 planned developments for this area. Can I steal that mouse from you? So on the southern side of the site, we have the old J.C. Penney's building, which the Plan Commission and Council previously approved a plan development for Extreme Customs to locate in these 3 parcels. On the northern, we have a parcel that kind of wraps around the back. This is the mine shaft development site that Plan Commission and Council just recently approved through the SIP. And then in the middle of the 5th parcel is the current Rogan's Shoes. So the city is anticipating making about $4.84 million in expenditures, which will be further outlined in the project plan. And project costs include about $1.89 million as pay-as-you-go incentives, $2.75 million in additional public infrastructure improvements, and an estimated $200,000 administrative costs. So if you can kind of go to your TID plan, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about it. Thank you. So I'll start by drawing your attention first to page 4 of the TID plan. So this outlines the description of the summary. So again, it's a approximately 27-acre parcel that has 3 current property owners on those 5 parcels, that being Mineshaft. Extreme Customs is the proposed purchaser of the JCPenney and 2 other sites currently owned by Phoenix Investments, and then the Rogan Shoes site. Extreme Customs was previously approved for their planned development in February of 2019, and Mineshaft was approved in May of 2019. Total estimated project cost is an investment of about $22.8 million. The site has received a WEDC Idle Sites grant for approximately $500,000, and then approximately $1.89 million is being requested in development incentives. So there's the bottom of that page. The city is anticipating that this TID would close after approximately 16 years of increment. Moving on to page 5. This is the but-for test, and looking at this, the city has determined that this district would be in need of rehabilitation. So this site has severely deficient public infrastructure. From when this site was originally developed to today's code, Public Service Commission has changed a number of the regulations for how a site is served with water. So presently in this site, and we'll have a slide a little bit later of it, but sewer and water kind of come into the site and then travel down to service all the buildings. Public Service Commission no longer permits that. And this site, in order to redevelop, must have independent water lines to each parcel of development. So a new water line is required for the Extreme Customs development, and Rogan's is required their own dedicated line. In conjunction with that, during the Highway 41 reconstruction, a portion of the stormwater management that this site had, and this site includes a common stormwater management plan for the entire site. So all 5 parcel stormwater management is currently taking place kind of on the northwest corner of the property. That's where the stormwater management is located. When the Highway 41 changes were made, that stormwater management plan was impacted. The site now needs to be brought back into conformance with current stormwater management plans. In order to do that, essentially 2 of the developers have no ability to maintain stormwater management on their sites and are working with the 3rd property owner to kind of have a common overall stormwater management plan. So I'll draw your attention to number 5 on that page. So this is being designated as in need of rehabilitation, mainly because of those public infrastructure deficiencies and the cost associated with bringing them up to code. And again, regardless of any development wanting to go on the site, those improvements will have to be made before they could be redeveloped. On page 6, number 11, this plan is in conformance with the city's comprehensive plan. It is also in conformance with the city's corridor plan. We did the South Park and 9th corridors last year. If you remember, this one of the sites that was determined as a major gateway and should be redeveloped. Page 8 is kind of the boundary map. And we have some of the other maps. A lot of these exhibits are what is required under the state statutes for being provided within a TID plan. Draw your attention to page 13. This is the equalized value test required by the state. As you can see, we are still well under the 12% total equalized value, so it does pass that test. Moving on to page 14, this starts to list a little bit of what the proposed project costs are. So there are some public improvements that would look to be made, potentially be made in this site after the development incentives would be paid off. There's a potential in this area that the city will need to make additional stormwater, sewer, and sanitary improvements for more development in that area. Potentially there's also a need for some additional sidewalk and mixed-use, multi-use trails that could take place. And then obviously the main one is the cash grants or development incentives as part of this. The city does also have the administrative cost along with going with the TIF, and I said that's about the $200,000. And then page 18 starts to outline a little bit more of what the project cost that would be covered as part of this TID could be. So you can see they are mainly related to sewer, or they should say they are related to sewer and water. Some drive apron improvements to bring the site up to current city standards. And then public infrastructure and TIF expenditures. So the bottom 2 lines are the public infrastructure would be those potential future developments that the city could undertake for public infrastructure improvements, and then the TIF administrative expense. And then there is the storm water and water components of the development incentives to kind of bring this site up to current code requirements. Next, I would also draw your attention to Table 3, which is located on page 24. So this starts to outline the cash flow of the project. The MRO would be approximately $1.7 million in principal, and then approximately $180,000 in interest. Again, as this is a pay-go TIF, essentially the developer is funding it up front, which is why we build in that discount rate or an interest rate, because they are going to have to borrow for the money up front to undertake the development and make those public infrastructure improvements. And then TID closure could be as early as 2036 if the analysis would hold true, and that would be just paying off the pay-go portion of it could close as early as 2036. And finally, the last one I would draw your attention to in the TID plan is page 28. That is that overlying taxing jurisdiction document that shows if this development took place without TIF and was built out to the potential as shown, that would be the breakdown of increment provided to each of the overlying taxing districts. However, it is the city's anticipation that without the TIF assistance, this project would likely not move forward and create the increment as outlined in that table. So going back to my staff report a little bit, I did outline those uses for you, but I think most of this plan commission is familiar with the projects as we've seen those recent plan development approvals. Again, I do outline that this is in need of rehabilitation and conservation TID. And then the big one for Plan Commission, because the main role of Plan Commission during this process is to look at this development and this TID's consistency with our land use plans. I would point out that this is interstate commercial within the City of Oshkosh Comprehensive Plan. Interstate commercial is intense commercial and retail development, generally located along the primary corridors and intersections. This development in TID would be consistent with that intent of our comprehensive plan. And then further, the city corridor plan for South Park identified this as Site B1, which recommended that the city should focus redevelopment efforts on this area. So it would be consistent with those interests outlined in the city corridor plan. That being said, we'll get there. Staff does recommend approval of the project plan and boundaries for TID 37. How'd I do, Todd and Kelly?
That was
That's my first
extraordinarily
one.
thorough, so nothing to add.
All right, we have technical questions on this. Yes, John.
With approving this TIF, does that, would that include also if there happen to be any future developments along the west side of those parking lots?
The east side?
Or the east side, excuse me, yeah.
Yeah,
the
so
east side.
one thing that this TID does help account for is the stormwater management plans that have been developed take into account full reconstruction of this entire area, which means stormwater and utilities are kind of being accounted for, that if, I think as you're alluding to it, you know, if outlet development should take place, the stormwater management plan is being sized appropriately to already handle that. So it's not a situation where this development takes place 3 years from now, we do some outlots, now we have to readdress the whole area. They're trying to be kind of forward thinking in this TID, and with the stormwater management plan account for all of that.
Could you talk a little bit about, because it's in the write-up here, about the aviation component of this and how that sort of limits development?
So right now, the, let's see if I can find a better map. We do have the airport overlay district, which does limit the uses allowed within certain airport zonings. Good one if I can just find it. Right now, the airport zoning basically ends about here where the grass pad is. So north of this site is outside of the airport zoning district, which allows those assembly restaurant type uses. South of this line is within the airport zoning district, which does not allow anything that is deemed a assembly use. So hotel, restaurant, anything like that, which is an assembly occupancy in the building code, is not permitted in that area.
Any place a plane might crash, sadly.
Correct.
Justin.
So part of the basis for the but-for, or what you're claiming to be the need, it says the city does not have funds available to pay for the cost of rehabilitating the public infrastructure. So the city doesn't maintain or have a revenue source for updating its own public
So
infrastructure?
this public infrastructure is the public infrastructure on the private side of it. We don't have any money to help assist in redeveloping of those infrastructure costs. So if I can go back to the last map here. Does a nice job of outlining. Oop, there we go. So in order to bring in the new water lines, the city does not have funds available, for example, rerunning these water lines, which the Public Service Commission says both of these buildings must have their own independent water lines.
Well, and just to clarify, the city's water main is in the right of way, but PSC requires a private parcel owner to have a lateral off of the city's water main to their site. So that's where the city does not have the funds to pay for laterals off of the private water main into the site. And additionally, funds to extend the water main to serve the sites, especially to the south of the site.
So it's listed as public infrastructure, but it's really not. It's the private owners. Like if I needed something at my, if I needed it at my house, I would have to pay for it to connect if I have to replace my lead line or something like that.
Correct.
Other technical questions?
So what's the basis then? So if that's, I mean, if that's fundamentally their cost, so just the question that you're supposed to ask, right, is this full project not feasible, and would it not occur if absent of the TIF financing? And the basis that I could find in here was that we needed it because the city doesn't have money for this public infrastructure, but it's really not public infrastructure, so
That's one aspect of it, but the other aspect is the site's obviously been sitting in this condition for an extended period of time. So just the things that have to be done in order to allow for it to be developed cost more money and make this a less attractive site than other potential sites. So redevelopment is always more expensive, and the city has determined that in order to allow the project to be economically viable for the property owners and the developer, that using the TIF money to address these site conditions that are an impediment to redevelopment is what's necessary to allow for these projects to go forward. So it's a combination of the utility costs, but also some of the other costs, be it private or public, that are involved that basically need to get this back up to snuff to make it an attractive site.
Go ahead.
So am I reading this correctly for the mine shaft one in particular? It's about a $16 million project. They can only get $8 million from the bank. And hence the impediment is that they would have to put up the rest of that money themselves without the TIF district to do the improvements that we were just talking about.
Yep. And the city made an effort. We applied for a WDC grant. The city had to apply
And
for
you guys
that
got
grant.
that?
And we got it for $500,000. So we're trying to do anything we can to lower that, TIF assistance amount. And they are asking for TIF assistance for under 10 years, which is a goal that council does have in our TIF policy. So they're really trying to meet all of those, requirements and goals that council has set forth.
Go ahead.
Is there any type of sensitivity analysis? Maybe this is beyond the scope of this, but just looking at their anticipated revenues, I mean, they have this $10 million revenue stream, but the range there with the models they use is between 7 and 13 million. I'm just curious if there's anything in here the city looks at what what the impact would be on the payback to the TIF, say they're at the low end of that compared to the end of it. High end, excuse me.
One of the techniques that the city has used on most of its recent TIF is this concept of pay-as-you-go. So rather than the city bringing any monies up front, the developer has to provide the money. So the impact, if you would have less value, if you'd have a declining tax rate, what would happen is the developer would just be reimbursed over a longer time horizon. So it would extend the life of the district versus what's projected here, but it wouldn't actually cause the city to be out any funds. The other thing it would do is, to the extent that there are additional infrastructure needs down the road, which we show right now is basically being cash funded out of the TID after the reimbursements are made to the developer, it would either reduce or delay the ability of the city to access those monies for those types of projects.
Okay. So I guess to go on, sorry if I'm getting too
go ahead.
deep here. So the main risk to me from a land, let me know if you understand if this is correct, from a land use decision is that this is a 35,000 square foot building that we're funding via this TIF, that if it was to go away, that would be the risk, correct? That if this was not to be successful?
The building was constructed and in 2 years, unfortunately, went out of business.
Correct.
So at that time, the city would have an updated public infrastructure
Yeah.
installed already, laterals to each site that would meet code,
Correct.
stormwater facility that would help with our Stringham Creek watershed area, which is our
Correct.
problem watershed. So, there would be some increment, some value on the site as the restaurant would be built and still there. It would not obviously be its fullest potential, but the city could still capture increment to fulfill the TIF obligations.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Questions? Yes, Justin.
One more question. This is my first time going through one of these, and in looking up to financing, one of the things that pops up a lot is that it creates or it can create a shadow fund that has minimal oversight. So you have your set aside fund that you're generating from your project, and like, how is that? What is the oversight of that the city has, and like who determines the distribution, and how is that just kind of managed for integrity? And I guess transparency. Transparency was the thing that came up a lot too.
Well, when the city creates a tax increment district, it has to create a special fund, typically a special revenue fund, and that's where all the revenues that are received by the district as well as related expenditures are accounted for from a accounting standpoint. The city's financial statements are audited annually to include those of the tax increment districts, and as you might be aware, there's also a joint review board involved in this process that has a representative from each taxing jurisdictions. One of the requirements of the TIF statute is that the city annually must file a report with the Department of Revenue that accounts for the revenues and expenditures, and then there's a requirement that this joint review board convene annually to review that report for each of the outstanding tax increment districts of the city.
So does like the council or does somebody outline these are the specific items that you can use these funds for, or is it kind of like in general?
Right, included in this
document
document,
does.
yeah.
That's
This is intended to be a framework for making expenditures, but the council The fact that it's in a tax increment district doesn't change anything in terms of what the council would otherwise be required to approve in terms of, for example, the incentive payments that'll be covered with a development agreement that's separate and aside from this. If there were to be public infrastructure outlays, that would be accounted for in the city's capital budget. So all the expenditures go through the same process as any other city expenditure or obligation.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, now we open the public hearing. Folks, anybody have something to say, please step up and state your name and address. And
I will note, we do have a letter, and if you could just kind of pass her one, from Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation. We did receive that this afternoon. I don't know if, yep, Jason is here if you.
Come on up, Jason.
Jason White, Greater Oshkosh Economic Development, 1204 Fairfax Street. Some of you may have gotten that letter earlier this afternoon, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over it. Most importantly, the letter just affirms support for the creation of the tax incremental district. And our direct role in this is that we started working with Tyler and Extreme Customs back in, I think, February 2018. Our team did in trying to identify options for to facilitate their growth as they were outgrowing their space on the northern side of the community. And so after an exhaustive search, the JCPenney building was identified as a good opportunity for them, and we believe also the community. At that time, we also talked about putting together some concepts they would to present to both the Plan Commission, also the city, to better understand what the visuals would look like for that property, understanding that the city had rejected a couple of different ideas or concepts for that building already, mainly some storage warehousing options. So as far as the TIF, obviously, you know, all of this needs to go together hand in hand, because the infrastructure costs that Tyler and his organization would have to incur in order to maintain a presence at that location with aging infrastructure, it's not possible for them to finance a project there without the greater TIF for that area. So, so I think all of this kind of goes part and parcel. At the same time, obviously, we really do believe that this enhances a gateway and very, very important artery for the community. So regardless of what you feel about one project or another, as a whole, you know, the mine shaft, Rogan's, and also Extreme Customs at that location improves our community as a whole. And that cannot happen, obviously, without the tax incremental district. So basically, that's what's outlined in the letter in front of you, and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Jason. Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Now's your shot. Come on up, sir.
I'm Tom Masters. I'm the owner of the Mine Shaft in Hartford. I also own another restaurant in the Holy Hill area. It's called the Fox and Hounds. So I just wanted to answer the one question about, you know, the viability of our restaurant, and perhaps if after a couple of years things aren't going well. I just want you to know that I've been at the Mine Shaft for 44 years. Okay, we've never had a bad year. We've never even had a slow time, really. So we expect it to be fantastic. We hope that the community receives it very well. It's a very family fun orientated type of thing. It's not a nightclub. It's not, so you see the entertainment part of it. Really, the entertainment part is like a gaming area for families, really. So, and I just wanted to maybe help to suppress any fear that, you know, we wouldn't make it. Okay, so I've been at my other restaurant for 17 years too. So it's like both of them are doing really good. So, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir.
My name is Tim Hess. I live at 2645 Templeton Place. I was involved financially some of the analytics portion of it. You know, you're right, the range between 7 million and 13 million, it basically makes it where, hey, you internal rate of return could go down to -7%. It's a horrible thing to do. What it tells you is there's substantial risk, and you really did hit on the point that with getting a limited amount of financing of $8 million from the bank standpoint, what we're really doing here is making it where the individual developer doesn't have to bring in just this huge sum of money, which is hard to do when you're talking this sort of facility. And just so you know, we've got Mr. Masters, Tom Masters, and his brother Will here, the owners of the mine shaft, that would be willing to address any other questions that you guys have. We have Ryan from Phoenix Investors, the present owner of the JCPenney site, Mr. Riley, the owner of Extreme Customs, and one of the contractors, Kip, who's going to do a bunch of the work here on the site. So if you got any more technical questions, we're willing to answer it for you. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Okay, I'm going to then close the public hearing. And we do need to make a motion, like we do for other things.
I make a motion to adopt the findings and recommendations stated in the staff report.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. I'd like to start. Go ahead, Justin.
So it lists here that there's $4.6 million in estimated assistance for I guess public infrastructure overall, sewer and whatnot. What percentage of the total cost of that of the public infrastructure is that? Is that all of it? Are we paying all of what's anticipated, or is that like a portion of it? I'm just looking at page 18 where it's.
So the public infrastructure is $2.75 million. That would be public infrastructure improvements after development incentives have been paid to the developer. So that would be if after this development goes in, we start to get some outlot developments and the city needs to look at expanding storm sewer sizes, expanding further water main to the area.
Sure, I was lumping the incentives section, which is utility related and I guess curb and that sort of stuff. So it's got the total here, and I just subtracted the admin cost. So about 4.6. What I mean is that? Oh, you're giving me a weird look.
4.6.
I did the 4.8 minus the 200,000 in admin costs.
Okay.
So the admin cost presumably
Okay,
is just city
okay.
staff time. So 4.6 million. I'm just curious, what is the total infrastructure related cost? 10 million, and we're doing 4.6, or is it 4.6 and we're paying 4.6?
It almost needs to be broken out into two. I mean, because the items under mine shaft, extreme customs, Rogan's, that is the items that they need to do to get the site development ready. So that will be in the cash flow sheet, and page, let me find it here, 20 through 24. Those costs will be taken care of at the beginning. And then we have identified certain public infrastructure costs that benefit the district. So we can't be using this TIF money to do projects anywhere else that would not benefit the district directly. So those are the costs, that 2.75 that Mark had mentioned, that will come after the TIF obligation assistance is complete. And it's our best guess right now.
Sure.
Things could change. Like I said, a big one is at Stringham Creek. That's kind of our problem watershed. That's the South Park going to the Fox River. So we wanted to make sure we had adequate funds in there, and then pedestrian connections. Going across 41 to connect this district to other areas on the west side of 41. So that was our engineer's best guess at this point, where prices are at. But what can happen in the future, you tell me, But that's why we have these project costs identified in here, because in the future, then it does give the city that ability to utilize TIF funds for those public costs.
So, I mean, my understanding then, it sounds like it's really important that financial support be provided for these public infrastructure, sewer, water lines, et cetera. Similarly, in our residential areas, where I know that this may not be applicable, but we have lead service lines, and we ask for the city, or the city will provide some support, but we do ask for the property owner to also pay for part of that. I think maybe it's 50-50, or it depends upon the scope of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the context of my question is, we're talking about a drinking source that is potentially polluted with a hazard, and we're asking the property owner to contribute funds. So in this case, similarly important, an important development spot for the city. are they sharing some of the costs in the public infrastructure, or is the city paying the whole thing? And whereas in some of our important residential areas, we won't pay for the whole thing, we'll pay for part of it.
Right, there are some costs that they did identify on the site that are required to get the site back into compliance, that the city had decided not to include in the TIF ask, that they will be required to pay for. And then also, as Mark mentioned, this is all pay-go, so they have to pay for these costs at the to upfront. They have to demonstrate that this is how much it costs, and so this number could fluctuate depending what those costs come back at, if plans change, if costs change, if requirements change, whatever that may be. But there were costs that they do have to pay for on their own that would not be TIF funded.
Last thing I have, can I just get like a rough estimated number? If you have all of the public infrastructure costs that you're lumping together in these incentives, about what percentage of the actual cost do you believe that the city would be paying through the TIF financing?
I might ask that, Tim, would you have a rough estimate, a breakdown?
I don't quite know what he's asking, so.
I mean, without looking at the numbers, to see exactly what we decided not to fund, I don't want to give you a breakdown. But there is a substantial amount that was not included in the TIF ask here, the reimbursements that we have listed on the project costs.
The developers are looking at trying to stay under the 10-year, which is kind of a benchmark set by council. When they look at TIFs, they really like things that cash flow in under 10 years. So the applicant, in looking through the numbers that they asked for, made sure they were only looking at enough to stay within that 10-year window. So their expenditures are higher. Again, unfortunately, I don't have an exact number for you, but they tried to make sure they kept it at the 10 years by only asking for things, a portion of it that kept them at that time frame.
Tim, what is the total TIF request versus the total investment? Is that under 10%, or what was that? I know you had mentioned that number at that council presentation last.
So 1.74 or 1.7 million is 7.4% of the overall investment that is getting put into the site.
I know that doesn't answer your question directly, but it kind of puts into context the entire, how it breaks down with the overall site development. We have those numbers.
Sure.
Other discussion?
Oh,
Go ahead, Michael.
Just real
Hey,
quick,
John.
just wanted to clarify that I'm not here trying to speak to the viability of any specific business. I assume you wouldn't come into the Oshkosh market unless you did your due diligence. I just want to make sure we as a body are doing our due diligence. We got 3 companies coming into this space. 2 are already in the market, 1 is not. It's a large space. It's a public subsidy. It's an investment. It's a little different than approving a development plan. So just wanted to make sure we were doing our due diligence, and I appreciate you answering my questions.
Right, and that's something that the city works with Ellers and Associates on, and if you do know, there's a market analysis that we do require folks submit, and that's something that we do consider, when looking at the numbers and making sure that it is a viable project, and that we can fulfill our TIF obligations should something happen.
John?
Yeah, I just want to say that typically here in Oshkosh, we haven't been very friendly to restaurants that want TIFs. Now we've had 2 that have come through with multi-use developments, because we had the granary that came through. That one went through strikingly easy, and I think there was a lot of nostalgia involved with that one. But as we see, they're doing well over there. And but I said, again, it was multiple use because we had off space there as well that was included with that. Now, the mine shaft's going to dominate this property as far as what people think of when they think of the property. But because of that overlay with the airport, there can't be any more restaurants that go in here. Anything else that comes in front is going to be service, people in, people out real quick. Not a lot of people on the premises. And I think this is exactly why we have TIFs, because this is a gateway to the city. We've talked about this spot for the whole 10 plus years I've been on this commission. And we finally have something here. We have people that are eager to go in here, and I think this is fantastic for the community. I want to commend everybody who's worked on all of this.
I would add to what John said, the original development that was here, I think this gives us a chance to correct some mistakes in terms of the way the buildings were facing, and there was a lot, you
Exactly.
drove down a gateway on 41 and you saw the backs of buildings and loading docks and all that kind of stuff. And I think that this is, given the long time that the site has sat the way it is and the restrictions because of the aviation, I think it's appropriate step. Other commentary before we take a vote? All right, let's call the roll, Mina.
Carey,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Groth,
Aye.
Crop,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Kintz,
Aye.
Keeper,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Final business item for tonight is lucky number 7. Grant fiber optic easement at William A. Steiger Park, 200 Ohio Street for Northern Telephone and Data Corporation. Do we do any site inspections over there? Drive over that region a lot, but I didn't really. Okay, we accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Okay, this is a easement request by Northern Telephone and Data Corporation, or NTD, which is requesting a 8-foot wide easement for fiber optic cable placement and at William Steiger Park, which is located at 200 Ohio Street. William Steiger Park is situated on the south shore of the Fox River, east of Ohio Street, and north of the Bridgeview Center office complex. In 2012, a 750-foot segment of the Oshkosh Riverwalk was constructed through the property, along with benches, lighting, and other Riverwalk amenities. Up on the screen, I have air photos showing the subject site. You can very well see the location of the Riverwalk that was constructed, and the area in orange is the proposed 8-foot wide easement. In the spring of this year, our department was notified that NTD installed conduit for fiber optic cable, assuming that the park was public right-of-way. However, the park is not public right-of-way. It's private property owned by the city of Oshkosh. Placement of utilities not owned by the city requires an easement for placement of the said utilities. So that's why this request is coming forward. This is an after-effect request, as the conduit has been installed. The city contacted NTD's engineering consultant and requested detailed drawings showing the location of the placed conduit as well as other city and private utilities. This map up on the screen again shows the easement, a proposed easement in pink, centered on the placement of the conduit, as well in relation to other utilities located within the area. The area is kind of congested with both public and private utilities. It's kind of hard to see at this scale, but everything in white is shown to be private utilities, either AT&T or WPS Gas or Electric. And the line segments in yellow, that's City Electric, that services lighting for the Riverwalk. So the Department of Public Works requested more detailed drawings to show exactly how the placement of the conduit and the easement would impact not only the city's facilities, but the private utility providers. The applicant did state they did explore several options for placement of the conduit. They first looked at placement within private easements along the waterfront side of the commercial developments. Again, it's already congested with private utilities. You can see all these lines running along the backs of these buildings, by WPS and AT&T, which services the buildings in Bridgeview Center. They did consider placement of the easement along the fronts of the building, but then there's the challenges of dealing with the existing parking lot, and wasn't as viable option for them. So they did decide to place it within the city park property. In their opinion, it was the only viable option and provides enough of unobstructed area for placement of the conduit. Although the location of the conduit is not the most ideal, for the city's opinion, Staff does agree that this is probably the most viable option for them. We do have concerns that the conduit may interfere with the ability for the city to place future structures long-term. And we are going to be placing a condition in the easement or a condition making that any existing or future city facilities will be superior to any of NTD's facilities. So the city attorney's office is preparing the easement documents, which will be recorded at the Winnebago County Register of Deeds. And it'll be recorded once signed by both parties and approved by the Common Council. So staff is recommending approval of the granting of the proposed easement at 200 Ohio Street as requested.
Thank you, sir. Technical questions? Yes, John. How do they manage to lay conduit without anybody knowing they're doing it in public land and get away with it without being fined or anything like that?
Well, we're assuming they did probably do a digger's locate prior. It was probably at that time where the city's locator probably questioned, this is private property, and probably that's what kind of brought this to the city's attention that, hey, they didn't get, proper approvals or an easement to place this conduit, so. Is Justin still here? Is Justin still here?
Yes.
We're bringing Justin back. You need to sit closer to the microphone, sir.
Any more background on how this was discovered, or?
No, I think Ray Mauer, the Parks director, had indicated that, I don't know if he was brought to attention of it, but I think they found it wintertime of last year.
Oh, really?
So I'm not sure how it got discovered.
Okay, other technical questions? Yes, Justin.
And it's not that I oppose this, but I'm just curious, what happens if the council says no?
They would have to remove the
it?
conduit.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just real quick, I heard you talking about the mutual agreement that would be signed as far as if city were to develop anything that takes precedence over this, and that being a condition. Did we need to have that as a condition on here as well?
No, that will
That was
just be.
just so that way it was all along the way as why I was asking.
Yeah, no, the city attorney's well aware of that request by Public
Okay.
Works, and it'll be part of the easement documentation.
It's
Just wanted to make
appropriate
sure
for
we
the
were
easement
doing our due diligence, because.
Yep.
Other technical questions or commentary? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Now is your opportunity. Going once, going twice. All right, back to the commission. We need a motion.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Further discussion? Kathy?
Just a comment,
we get a second?
over the years I've
Oh,
noted.
pardon me, did we get a second for his?
Second.
Oh, Justin seconded. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kathy.
Okay, just a comment that over the years I've discovered that communication companies are the gorilla in the room, and they do whatever they want to, whenever they want to. Isn't that approximately correct, Mark?
We have had similar situations in the past.
Yes, and in public right of way, I think that's why they did it, isn't it? That they can basically, literally do anything they want.
It's
according
not right away, it's parkland.
Yeah.
Park.
They have, we'll bring Justin back up. The way public right-of-way is treated for these type of improvements is different than private property, and that's part of where this situation arose. Is they thought it was public right-of-way, and it was not.
But to John's point, I think it tends to irritate the plan commission, certainly, that they don't come in for approval and that we are basically unable to, in this case, I mean, there's no choice, but we are unable to affect their action.
I would say there is choice here. It is just conduit. If plan commission and council felt this was not appropriate, they could make that determination.
Yeah, because they were stopped before they even put the wires in. So it's just the pipe conduit that they plan on putting the wires in to service the facilities. So
Oh, okay.
there's no, I mean, there is conduit there for them to use. They plan on using it, but if it would come down to it, they would have to abandon it in place and find a different route.
And as Jeff outlined in his report, regardless of the timing, in evaluating this, ultimately it is probably the best location
Yeah.
for it.
Right.
But Kathy raises a very important.
I was just
Very,
making.
very valid point.
Everybody else
I feel better,
follows
I've
the
had it.
procedures, and they do not. Other comments? Yes, go ahead, down first, Tom.
This would be a hard fast no for me without the condition that you put on there, that you have the ability to usurp this in the future. So, because of that, then I will reluctantly go with a yes, but normally this would be a hard no for me.
Yeah, our Public Works Department was adamant that that be part of the easement documents.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, it seems very unlikely. I find it hard to believe that a company based in Oshkosh that does this would be unaware of what they were doing in an Oshkosh park. That said, I'm not in anybody's brain. I'm going to channel my inner Alan since he left us. But one of the things he taught me early on was that we want a desirable solution here at the Plan Commission, not take a pound of flesh. So I'll vote yes.
How kind of you. Other comments or questions?
Sorry, I started.
All right, let's call the roll. I mean, Kathy got the whole thing started.
I'm sorry.
Harry.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Crop.
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford.
Aye.
Hintz.
Aye.
Kiefer.
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Do we need a motion to adjourn before we have a brief,
So moved.
hopefully, workshop?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. We have a workshop about 20 Park.
In as few words.